In a world where mental health matters, through Food for Thought, we aim to create awareness and empower individuals to take charge of their mental well-being. Join us as we delve into the complexities of mental health and navigate the path towards healing and resilience. Food for Thought with Professor David Bitte.
Within our context, I find that when we talk about grief, we mainly focus on loss of a relative, loss of a friend. But when it comes to these other things, we kind of don't look at it as grief. And the other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were having a conversation. I was telling them I'm really feeling bad about a situation. And the first thing that comes out of their mouth, they said, "You're grieving." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? No one has died. What are you talking about? I'm grieving.
Yeah.
And they go on to tell me, you had an expectation, you had an attachment to this thing, and you've lost it. And so what you're feeling, the way you're saying you're feeling bad, you're feeling A, B, C, and D, you're actually grieving for that thing because it meant something to you. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I've never really looked at it like that, because for me, when you say grief, the first thing I ask is, who died?
Yeah. Well, just look around, and I think this is becoming very, very something that we are always talking about. Mm-hmm. Think of a person who is retiring. From a job that they have cherished.
Yes.
And say today is the 31st of May. Mm-hmm. You are in the office and tomorrow you will not be in the office. Okay, yeah? And this is a job that you put so much effort in.
Probably you've been there for 25 years. You have been there
for much longer.
Yeah,
and
30 years.
And all of a sudden you don't have the job, you go home. It may be not so much about the money, but the prestige, we are talking about loss of prestige.
And even the relationship.
And even the relationship. Yes. And even the relations with the people you are working with.
Yes.
How you used to enjoy going, being recognized and things like that.
Yes.
So this self-esteem, prestige, lost prestige, not so much the income. How many people get a lot of money and they lose the job, they retire, mm-hmm. and the money does not seem to be very helpful to them.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't have the joy, they don't have the satisfaction in life, and things like they are grieving. It's a kind of grief. Wow. You are grieving. So loss of position, loss of prestige, mm-hmm. loss of a political position is somewhere, whatever it was doing. So look at grief as a loss of something mm-hmm. that was dear to you.
Okay.
Yeah. And if we start from there, you can see dying, being diagnosed with a new disease, and the implication that it has for you and you as an individual. Even before you've been told you have 6 months to live, you start grieving yourself for yourself, or the relatives start grieving for you even before the death occurs, and very many other things. It's a relationship that you had cherished for a long time, in marriage, with children, with people who love you. So, you know what? Mm-hmm. Look at the example of Paul. Mm-hmm. And the church in Corinth. Mm-hmm. He had put so much effort in that church.
Yes.
Yeah. Paul had gone through many things. He was beaten, he was stripped, he was shipwrecked, he was think of everything.
Yeah.
But what pained him most? In fact, he was saying, I thank God for all of these losses, mm-hmm. which these bad things that happened to me. Yeah. But what was grieving him most was the fact that the people he had put so much trust in them, the people he had put all his emotional for their own good, were the ones who were deserting him.
Yes.
And that's what grieved him most. Yeah, that he said, I cannot, having put so much effort in you, invest so much, then when I'm there, some people come and tell you what I was telling you is rubbish. Mm-hmm. And he probably did not mind those people telling him that, telling them that what Paul was preaching was rubbish. What pained him was that the people believed.
They believed.
Yeah, they believed it and they deserted him. So, loss of that nature. Relationship, and they say is disruption of relationship can be extremely painful, especially if there are people you had put so much trust in them. Imagine you bring up a child, you have the best for them, and then they develop illnesses, and I see them here, they develop schizophrenia or depression or other things, or you give birth to a child who is deformed, or you give birth to a child with a lot of hope, and then somewhere along the way you realize this child is autistic, and therefore all the hopes that you had on this child are not going to come true. They go through grieving. So it's a loss of something that you were attached to. Yeah, if it is a dog, then
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the stages of grief. Because I understand,
the stages of grief.
I understand there's some stages that everybody goes through.
There are several stages. I think, let's talk about the example of somebody who has lost somebody. And you, like the mother who lost us. I don't know whether she was there, but she may not have been there. Or we hear it, I mean, children dying. Was it not the other day when some students from a certain university or schools, they get involved in a road accident, and then you be told that so and so your child has died.
Yes.
The one of the common thing is denial. Nah, must be joking. It can't be true. Yeah. So there is an element of denial that it is not true. It cannot have happened until you eventually you yourself you see say the body. And that's very important that they see they see the body.
That helps with overcoming the denial stage.
Yeah, exactly. Here it is. Here is my son. Here are the features. So you begin to accept. And even if when you see the body, you say, no, it cannot have happened to my son. No, it's not really possible. It can't have happened. And I have been told that story very many times. They see the body, initially outright denial. Yeah. Then they see the body and say, no, it can't be. This is not real. But then eventually they begin to accept. So denial and gradual acceptance. And once you begin to accept it, then you start asking yourself, what can I do? You start saying, what actually went wrong? Yeah. What did I contribute to this? Why did I allow my son to go on this bus? Why did I take my child to Changuli?
Yes.
Yeah. Couldn't I have done it in a slightly different way? So you start blaming yourself, thinking that there's something that you could have. You have a lot of questions, and sometimes, God, why did you allow it? Yeah. You ask questions to explain as to what happened. But as you eventually come to accept, then you start developing emotional disorders. Not everybody, but some of them, I said, we are very different.
Yes.
Some of them is anxiety. They cannot sleep well. They have problem with sleep. They cannot eat. They develop. They are not sleeping well. They have lost appetite. They get stomach upsets, and basically they are not eating well. So it begins to affect their emotional way of dealing with things. With them, they develop depression. This is why we had said these people said. A loss leads eventually, for the majority of a substantial amount number of them, into depression. So when you treat the depression, you don't just give the medicine for depression, you try to understand the dynamics that led to that. It's part of the management. And again, people will tell you, not everybody, but some people will tell you, or you get the history, you begin to realize that these people you are dealing them with, the one you are dealing with, some of them will tell you, as a result of all this pain, I have developed high blood pressure. I have developed diabetes. They have stomach ulcers. It's like eventually, if it goes for a long time, then people may develop physical illnesses. As a matter of fact, in 1952, now that we are talking about this, there were some researchers who tried to follow people who had been bereaved. We are talking about bereavement.
Yes.
Who had been bereaved of a spouse. And that was a starting point, that they had been bereaved of a spouse, a husband or a wife. Now, these, and they wanted to know what is the lifespan of those people who had been bereaved. Yeah. And they matched these people when they are comparing people. They said these people who had been bereaved, and they also looked at other people who had not been bereaved. They matched them very well in terms of the economic status.
Yes.
Could they afford the best care available in the United States? Because actually they were very rich people. So the only difference between these people who had been bereaved and who had not been bereaved was that they were similar in everything else, status, financial abilities, and things like that. They followed them for 5 to 10 years, and they discovered that those people who had been bereaved, as opposed to those who had not been bereaved, those who had been bereaved, they died on average 5 years earlier than those who had not been bereaved. And what did they die of? Physical conditions. Diabetes, hypertension, cancer, and all kinds of physical illnesses. So it seemed that being bereaved in the process of grieving, it interfered with many other things in the body that led to those other physical conditions. Maybe then they didn't quite understand what was happening. But now I think we have a good idea of what happens. That grieving process is a very stressful event. It leads to some chemical changes in the body, adrenaline and many other things, how your sugar is metabolized because of those chemical changes, maybe in terms of immunology, and then you get physical conditions.
Our time is up. Thank you so much for tuning in to Food for Thought with Professor Ndetei. Next week, we'll pick up this conversation from where we left off today. There's so much we can learn, and there's so much we need to learn on these issues. So I would encourage you to go on to our YouTube channel. If you did not begin the series with us, all the other videos, I think there are three or four videos before this one, you can find them on our YouTube channel. Get to see them, interact with the content, share with your friends, subscribe to our page, and let's continue to learn together. Until next week, do have a great weekend and God bless you.
Food for Thought with Professor David Ndetei.